Good afternoon all, and thank you for joining us today. I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar and present to you the second report in our What Workers Want series. This is me, Mark Staniland, Regional Managing Director for Hayes in the Midlands and in London, and I'll be taking you through the key findings from our report. After that, we will have time for some questions at the end. So if you post your questions in the boxes on the WebEx, then we'll pick those up at the end. I think by the fact that you've dialed in today, it's reasonable to conclude that you're hoping for some nuggets of information, some jewels to take back, incorporating some meaningful data that will hopefully spark a discussion for improvement in your organisation. Well, I'm delighted to tell you that the report is packed with data, and so don't write it all down, by the way, because we will send you the presentation. And the findings should definitely spark a lively discussion. To help with that, at the end of the presentation, you will be provided with a link, which actually, if you go onto it, you fill out a survey. It takes about 10 minutes, and you get a free online report, or it's an online tool, gives you a report. And we've used that internally at Hayes, and that report really does help frame the discussions that you can have back in your organisation. Happy to talk about that in more detail after we've done the presentation. So let's crack into this. Strap yourselves in. So this year, our What Workers Want report provides insight into what makes a successful applicant journey. The findings will hopefully help you understand your strengths and weaknesses throughout the applicant journey and identify where you might make improvements by benchmarking yourself against some of this data. To put together this report, we carried out an extensive survey earlier this year, which received almost 15,000 responses from candidates and employers across the UK. So hopefully it's got some credibility to back up the observations. Our report specifically focuses on what about the applicant experience attracts or detracts someone from applying to or accepting a role across 4 key stages. And those key stages are search, apply, decide, and join. The search stage includes the role of brand awareness and employer value proposition. The apply stage includes applicants' experiences when applying jobs. The decide stage includes the structure and experience of interviews and screening, and the join stage includes induction and onboarding process. All of this, I think, helps you have a structured conversation when you go away from this webinar. We've identified the key factors that determine success at each of these stages of the applicant journey, looking at what applicants believe to be the roadblocks throughout. By using the insights from this report, you can compare your applicant journey against the expectations and experiences of applicants surveyed, identifying weak points, and then putting all that together, put together a plan that might give you a competitive advantage. In today's intensely competitive market, the challenge isn't just finding prospective candidates, it's keeping them engaged throughout the entire application process to the point of hire. And based on our research, 63% of applicants at one time or another across any of the 4 stages have been deterred from completing their application. And this is the first of several striking pieces of feedback from our survey that we felt worth sharing with you. And therefore, the key message to take away this year is that first impressions perhaps matter more today than ever before. Applicants are judging all aspects of the employer and organisation, in addition to having a high level of expectation on how long a process should take and how easy it should be to apply to your organisation. But employers are not necessarily aware of the problems along their own applicant journey. As we can see here, there is an overall 10% gap in satisfaction rating between employers and applicants. 65% of employers think that they are offering a good or excellent experience, and by contrast, only 55% of professionals who applied to a job in the past 2 years rated the applicant experience provided by employers as good or excellent. So there's a clear mismatch, and employers are largely unaware of just how vital first impressions made during the applicant journey are to a successful hire. Looking at this more closely, the applicant's rating of quality of experience declines from search through to the final stage, join. Employers, however, do not see much of a difference in the quality of experience they provide across any of the stages of their applicant journey, proven by the quality rating of employers declining by only 5% from one end to the other. Overall, decide and join, the latter two stages, are the worst performing stages of the applicant journey. The biggest applicant versus employer satisfaction gap that we saw across the whole applicant journey is at the decide stage, the third stage, which includes the structure and experience of interviews. Employers and applicants are at odds in their assessment of the decide stage. Just 49% of applicants rate their experience at this stage as good or better versus 65% of employers. And overall, 84% of applicants say they have a negative experience during this stage, which again is a pretty frightening statistic. And it's a pretty good pointer as to where we can start making a difference. Unprepared interviews and a lack of interview structure are some of the main reasons why applicants are being deterred at interview stage. And poor communication regarding the process is also a main contributor to applicant dissatisfaction. Poor experiences do not end once an applicant starts a new job, and these are impacting on the retention of new starters. Just under half of professionals say they've left at least one job in the first year because it did not match the expectations formed during the application process. The key areas where these new starter expectations were not met were the job advert itself, training, and overall cultural fit. So what do workers want? I hear you cry, from an application journey. They want employers to be transparent and authentic. They want an efficient process and personalised communication and functionality across every stage. And of course, they want to feel welcomed by the organisation. So let's take a closer look at each of these points. Today's applicant expects to be able to find out almost everything about an employer before they join. 1 out of 2 professionals won't consider applying if they can't find all of the information they require. And as we all know, this information is much more readily available than it has been in the past. Applicants want to see how an employer will invest in their personal development, career plan, and whether they have a public commitment to equality, diversity and inclusion. And this is something I go into probably about 70% of our own assessment centres in our regions, and this is an area where I've experienced more questions in the last 3 to 4 years than I have ever before. If employers do not make this information easily accessible, then candidates may be deterred right from the outset of the search stage of the applicant journey. When researching prospective employers, candidates are looking for authenticity. So to learn about what it's actually like to work for an organisation, applicants turn to both current and ex-workers for first-hand insights. Employers are therefore advised to regularly conduct employer brand health checks, as 61% of candidates say they've been discouraged from applying to a job after reading negative reviews online about an organisation. Interestingly, however, many employers don't consider review sites and staff testimonials to be an important part of their candidate strategy. In fact, nearly half of employers are in the dark about these reviews and say they are unsure or unaware of the sentiment of employee feedback online. Again, another strong pointer as to what can be improved on. And applicants are deterred by lengthy and inefficient processes and delays in communication. Our findings reveal a clear mismatch between employer and applicant expectations of how long the application process should take during the apply stage. Cumulatively, 71% of candidates would consider abandoning an online application once it has taken over 15 minutes. Now, I've had many discussions with employers who say that, well, if they can't hang around for more than 15 minutes, then we're probably not interested, but it is something to consider that actually that number of candidates, you may be excluding a significant part of those people who were applying for you. However, a substantial number of employers have an application process lasting longer than this time frame, as in 40% of employers. Employer websites are providing a disappointing experience for many applicants. 50% of applicants give a neutral to very poor rating of their experience when applying for a job directly on an employer's website or portal. The majority of those who gave these ratings blame a lengthy process with too many requirements as the main contributing factor. While speed of process is important, it is clear that it is communication along the journey that really keeps applicants engaged. For example, 57% of applicants say it is important to receive confirmation of moving to the interview stage within a week of applying, but 36% of employers don't meet this expectation. Following the final interview, 58% of applicants expect to hear within 3 days if they've been successful, but a third of employers don't meet this expectation, taking up to a week or more. And 25% of applicants have accepted a job verbally, but because of a long wait to receive the formal written offer, they have accepted another job in the meantime. 61% want to receive a written offer within 1 week of the verbal offer. So some great pointers there on communication and what remedial steps we can take to improve how we do those things. Applicants are more likely to apply to a role if the process is easy and provides personalised functionality and communication. According to our findings, applicants want more personalised functionality than employers currently offer on their career websites or online portals. Desirable features include the ability to set up job alerts, start and stop their application, or create a profile. Unfortunately for these applicants, less than a third of employers have these functionalities built into their online portals or career websites. What's more, 41% of employers know their career websites provide a neutral to very poor experience to applicants, but irrespective of this, over half say that they're not investing in their career site functionality. Despite applicants' expectations of simple and streamlined online processes requiring fewer touchpoints with an employer, our research also shows that applicants still want the option for personal interaction as part of the process. Over 2/3 of applicants say it's important for them to have a contact person who can provide status updates on their individual application, and this is, as you can see, increases as the process progresses. Employer feedback is also highly valued, but surprisingly not always provided. Over 3/4 of applicants say employers are not good at giving feedback after an application was rejected, while 66% say employers do not provide sufficient feedback following an interview. And then finally, the human element is still so important. Applicants are judging all aspects of the journey, and an unwelcoming first impression can be detrimental. From the way we are greeted at reception to experiencing the office environment, applicants are assessing all interactions with a potential employer. Nearly half of applicants say that they've been deterred from pursuing a role further due to a negative first impression of the organisation, and that was largely due to an unwelcoming environment on arrival and also the contact with staff being unwelcoming on those first bits of contact. Almost 2/3 of applicants want to meet their direct reports during the interview stage, but only 13%, which I found quite shocking, of employers offer this opportunity. And 46% want to meet with potential colleagues as part of the interview process. However, the welcoming process shouldn't stop once the job has been accepted. Once they've joined the organisation, new staff say the most important part of their induction is to spend time with the team, yet only 66% of employers prioritise this as a standard part of the induction process. Failure to conduct a thorough and welcoming join process may lead to a loss of a new hire, with a third of those who have left an organisation in the first 12 months saying it was because they weren't a good cultural fit. And this is so important when you consider that 63% of candidates see culture as the single most important consideration when they've been joining their organisation, new organisation. And so to sum up, a good applicant journey, to maybe state the obvious, is very much a key to attraction. However, the research has found that candidates are being deterred from applying due to poor experiences along the way. They encounter a few common roadblocks, including meeting with unprepared interviews, negative employee reviews, online applications taking too long, and staff and environment giving a negative first impression. And so to our recommendations. First of all, review the speed of the process. As a first step, determine how long it takes to complete each stage of your application journey, looking one by one at specific components such as the time it takes to submit an online application or to respond to applicants after interviews. Using this report, you can benchmark your time against the expectations of candidates to identify where your process may be falling short of expectations. As a second step, hiring managers and HR teams should work together to create a standard protocol for interviews and applicant communication. Setting expectations around an acceptable number of interviews and agreed timeframes to provide feedback or updates to applicants will help your organisation deliver a better, more consistent experience. Second, invest in the online experience of applicants. Now, while you may not be in a position to invest heavily in the capabilities of your career website or portal, there are some basic candidate expectations that we would recommend you try and meet. And first of all, ensure your website or portal is mobile optimized. Secondly, provide the ability for applicants to start and stop their application and to update their profiles, edit their CV, and upload additional profiles. Overall, this should better help retain applicants until the end of the process and submitting their application. Third, create a structured interview process. Aim to create a more standardized interview process across your organisation, starting by auditing your hiring manager's current interview processes, reviewing elements such as the structure, the questioning techniques, the length and number of interviews that are required before an appointment is taken. And as you look to create an organisation-wide standard, I'm sure many of you would be mindful of the nuances and requirements that pertain to different roles and specialist groups. Fourth recommendations, make employee reviews part of your attraction strategy. The people and culture of an organisation is the most important consideration for candidates when assessing whether to apply for a new role. And to find out if the culture being promoted by the employer is authentic, applicants are of course going to look to employer review sites for an honest answer. So it's essential to understand what the current sentiment is about your employer brand online. Conduct an employer brand health assessment by analysing employer reviews and conducting social media listening exercises. Building a strategy that encourages current employees to share positive comments about their experiences while addressing negative feedback by dispelling misconceptions and demonstrating the changes or improvements that you've made. And then finally, test your journey. Like any good product, user testing of the applicant journey is key. Do you know what it's like to be a new person walking into your office or workspace? Do you know what people find when they search for your organisation as an employer? Do you know how difficult it is or isn't to apply for a job on your site? You need to be consistently reviewing this process end to end. So this report provides first impressions really matter So audit, assess and refine yours to present your organisation consistently in the best possible light to prospective candidates. So there you have it. The roller coaster ride is over on What Workers Want. So now you've heard what makes the ideal applicant journey. The next step is to think about how you go about benchmarking your candidate experience. And as I mentioned at the start, we've got an online assessment tool that you can go to help you with that discussion. Our online tool allows you to evaluate how strong your candidate experience is against industry-leading best practice across 6 key assessment stages, which are planning, attraction, matching, onboarding, retention and redeployment. And then based on your self-assessment and specific goals, which as I said, it's about a 15-minute survey max, the tool automatically provides a rating against your answers and actually sort of throws out a report, much like you get with a psychometric test, which is personalised to your organisation. So as I said, we've used it ourselves and I would highly recommend it. So I'll just take a sip of water and we'll give you a little bit of time to throw in some more questions, and I'll have a quick read of the ones that we have got, which I need to put my glasses on for. So give me a few seconds. Right then, so hang about. I can't read that. How would you advise providing a direct online experience to candidates when you are using an agency? Well, assuming that you have some kind of social media platforms that your staff utilize to express their opinions of your organisation. So, for example, the staff at Hayes tend to use Glassdoor a lot, which is one of the platforms that is out there. Then I would be saying to any prospective the agency that you use to say where your employees rather go and put their comments or actually at interview, if you're saying, look, this is where you would find out more about the organisation, then you refer them to those relative sites. So basically a candidate coming through an agency should not prevent them going and finding out more about you. Where are we now? Any advice on how we could encourage online reviews? We only seem to get the negative ones. Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think I think it's good to have somebody in your organisation who can be a central point for social media commentary. So ours is our in-house marketing department, for example, and then the thing you have to be careful of is saying to people, right, go out and say lovely things about us, which is clearly rather leading, but he's saying to people, look, we would encourage you to express your opinions on how you find your career in our organisation and what it's like to work in, or describe the culture, and here are the areas that you can go to. So at Hayes, we will periodically make it part of our announcements, internal announcements among staff, that we would welcome them putting their comments on sites. But of course, the one thing we never do is to say what we feel that they should say. So I think having a central point of contact that drives it consistently would be my starting point, and then making sure that those people are engaging with key stakeholders in the organisation that then make sure that the message gets out to the people you want to get it to. How would you advise reducing the length of an application process when long application forms with a number of questions have been standardised across a large organisation who are against change? Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. Okay, so I guess the challenge here is it's all about unless leadership are engaged in reviewing this process, then it's a bit of a tough starting point. However, my recommendation to this would be utilising our benchmark. I mean, we're providing here you with a tool to go and challenge what you do. The one thing I think leadership in most organisations would recognise at the moment is that there is a war on talent out there. There are skill shortages which we're all after. And if you're in an organisation which has got a long application form with processes that drain, you are losing talent. You can benchmark against that using our tool, so at least you can put something in front of your leadership to engage in a discussion that might take you down these routes. The other thing, if somebody was to come to me as a recruitment partner, I would be very happily sitting in front of with you along with key stakeholders saying, look, I am out here in the market and you are losing people because your process is mitigating the attraction of the talent that you're after. So I think you need to you need to use all the sources of evidence you can and start to begin that discussion with key leaders. Find a key leader who will engage in it. Right, we'll do see what this next one says, maybe do one or two more. This is a long one. When the candidate expects a 1-week response on applications, for example, most adverts are 4 weeks and others, then acknowledging applications, we don't count contact comes before the close of the advert. Do you feel this is something that could be negative? I think some form of contact, so if I was to apply in week 1 and there's another 3 weeks in the process, I think a courtesy response I would certainly, would consider to be appropriate and good practice, letting me know that the application is in process and being reviewed, and letting me know when the decision date for interviews is, and then I think if that's your internal process, then that would be the least that I would do. If you get an application into the process and you can see that that person will be getting an interview and you can make that decision during the process, that will depend on maybe what your internal protocols are. And maybe if you're in the public sector, that might be standard practice that you can't do that or don't do that. But certainly, if that was me in a private sector company, I would certainly be letting people know, yes, look, we've got a process, the closing date is here, but we would like to see you. And I would be trying to get the interview process arranged in between. But I think no contact at all. Human nature tells me that just leaves people thinking, well, where am I? I'll just go somewhere else because I can't be guaranteed anything happening here. We got one more? Okay, well, our lot is dry. 4 very good questions. So look, I hope you found that useful and as joyous as I did. I think this information here that we provided thankfully is not time limited. It's not going to go away, and there are lots of issues here that don't get sorted overnight. So I hope it assists you in having meaningful discussions back in your organisation. And as I say, please do use the report, the online tool that we've provided. Which there's no catch there, I assure you. I've used it myself and it's really useful. Fantastic. Thanks very much for joining us today and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Goodbye.